be talking about a different topic, and it's pawpaws. I grew up in upstate New York, and I never heard of a pawpaw until I moved south, even though pawpaws their distribution does reach barely up into New York State, around the Finger Lakes, otherwise all up and down the eastern United States. But I had never really heard about it till I moved south. And of course, many of you are familiar with the song, picking up pawpaws and putting them in your pocket. So this poster that shows on the left was an annual meeting of the Mississippi Native Plant Society that I gave this similar talk. And I thought the young woman that designed the poster did a beautiful job. I quite like it. So these are the topics we're going to talk about today: history, taxonomy, distribution. You can read it all. We'll touch on each one of these. So in the beginning, those are pawpaws right in the middle. We'll start with the history. Phil, the photos of all of us is interfering with me seeing the screen. Are you able to get rid of all those photos on the right of you, me, and?
Actually, you're talking about all of our participants. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, you show on the screen. I show on the screen, which I don't need to, and a couple of other people show on the screen. But those images are covering up my text.
Oh, gee, you may be able, up in the top right-hand corner, to click on a button that will allow the entire screen to show. I'm not exactly sure what your screen is looking. I can see your screen and it looks perfect. So I'm not sure exactly what you're seeing.
Okay.
It,
All right. Let's see. So, oh, you know what? I just did it. I was able to minimize all of you. Not that you really need to be minimized. So the first reference to pawpaw was as early as 1541. De Soto, when he did his expedition, found that they were being used by the Native Americans quite extensively. And then when Lewis and Clark went there in 1810, or in the Southeast, they found that a lot of people were using them. A lot of Native Americans were using them. It was a staple food for them. And as many people know, George Washington, I think they say, had wooden teeth. And so that might have been one of the reasons why it was his favorite food. But it was a favorite food of his and Thomas Jefferson. These are all the Native American regional names for pawpaw. The botanical name, as you can see, there is Asimina triloba. But look at all the different ones. So the Seneca Indians, or the Seneca Native Americans up near New York State, that's about as far north they go, maybe just a touch into Canada. But that's where I'm from, yet I had never heard of them. But you can see the sort of epicenter of all of it is Tennessee, Kentucky, those areas. But that's a lot of names. I'm glad I didn't have to remember them all. Mark Catesby, these are the first illustrations of it in 1683 to 1749. That was his lifetime, of course. But he did this beautiful illustration. I don't know how many of you are familiar with him. He was an ethnographer, ethnobotanist, and he did this beautiful one, which is kind of strange, actually, compared to the way pawpaws really look. That looks like there's an indentation there in them, which I've never seen. And then our good friend Audubon. And what's nice is he also depicted the butterfly whose larvae depend on pawpaws, as well as the birds that eat them. So those illustrations of the fruit are more realistic, and the leaves are certainly realistic. And then Liberty Hyde Bailey. He's a hero to me because he was very instrumental in Cornell University, founding of Cornell University, where I went and got my degree. But he did this illustration. So the name pawpaw is derived from papaya, which is interesting because it's really a completely different fruit in a completely different family. Someone thought that the pawpaw fruit looked very similar to the papaya, and that's how it got its name. So papaya is in the Caricaceae, pawpaw is in Ananaceae. Ananaceae is the Annona family, a different fruit in the same family. So here's Annona. There's the fruit on the left. As you can see, if it didn't have all those indentations, it might look like a pawpaw. But the foliage, when I show you the foliage of pawpaw, you'll see that the custard apple looks very much like the same foliage. Janice has kindly volunteered to give us a rousing rendition of singing this song for us way down yonder in the pawpaw patch. This is the official song, and it's how many people, the only way that many people know of pawpaw. I'm always amazed at how many people here in the South have never tasted pawpaw. And so whenever I'm able to get my hands on some, I always try to get a spoonful of it to everyone so they can get an idea what it's like. All right, so taxonomy is classification. We talked about it being in the Ananaceae, custard apple family, which I just showed you. In the Ananaceae, there's about 108 accepted genera and 2,400 known species, all right? So that's in the family. Asimina triloba is one of those genera, and it has more than one species in that genus. So some of the names that pawpaw goes by are pawpaw, pawpaw, bandango, Indian banana, poor man's banana, Hoosier banana, and custard apple. The one I've really never heard any of those used locally except for pawpaw. Below there, you'll see there are 5 different species of pawpaw. These are all different ones, and the 2 that we see here are Asimina triloba, that's the big one, that's the one that produces the wonderful fruit. The other one that we see around here is Asimina parviflora. The small, parviflora means small flower. And that one produces fruit. I've heard that the fruit is not very good and not worth growing the plant for. Everything about the plant is smaller. They usually top out at 5 to 7 feet. And they're usually more upland and a little more drought tolerant than our regular pawpaw. And those pop up here and there here in the gardens too. So those are all different species of pawpaw, and I think I've got some good photos. Oh, the distribution. So that's similar to the photograph I already showed you. The green is where it's the most, the lime green, the light green is where it's the most, the distribution is the heaviest. But as you can see, again, right up into, barely makes it into New York State. All right, these are the characteristics of the pawpaw, the primary pawpaw we're going to be discussing today, Asimina triloba. And it's got so many qualities, even if you were not growing it for the fruit. The flower is quite fascinating. That flower, I would say, is about the size of a quarter, maybe more like a nickel. And on that particular photograph, you see on the left is the male flower, on the right is the female flower. It has a conical shape frequently and can get some really spectacular fall color, which I quite enjoy. The bark is pretty distinctive, as you can see up there on the left. And another good shot. The flowers almost have a waxy look to them, almost like they're artificial. Sometimes the pawpaws can have a decidedly symmetrical shape. It doesn't usually keep that, but young pawpaws will frequently have this symmetrical look to them. So I think they're attractive even when they're little. Here's the leaves. It's a pretty distinct leaf. There are not a whole lot of other plants that have a leaf that looks just like that. So on the top right, you'll see the fall color. On the bottom right are the buds that come out in early spring and start growing like that. Let's see, did I go? Yeah, I'm going right here. And these are all a lot of variation in the morphology and the shape of pawpaws, as you can see from this photograph. The bottom left is before they separate into individual fruit. But look on that top right photograph, how many different shapes there are. The one in the middle is what the ideal is, big and regular shaped. A lot of differences. I've noticed even in the taste of them, there's a lot of differences. So here's an example of what the pawpaw looks like. The inside, a lot of seeds, and the seeds are fairly large. One of the attempts that people are trying for is to produce fruit that has fewer seeds and smaller seeds, so there'll be more edible fruit. When you ask people to describe the taste of pawpaw, even myself, after eating numerous pawpaws, I wouldn't even know how to describe it. It's different than any other fruit I've ever tasted, but as you can see there on the screen, those are the way some people say they taste. The pineapple, maybe, more like maybe a mango and a banana, but it's very difficult to describe. A lot of nutrients in the pawpaw fruit. I don't know anyone that necessarily grows for those nutrients, but it's nice that they have those too. Lots of vitamin C and proteins. And the many uses of pawpaw. Every year it seems like someone comes up with a new idea for how pawpaws can be used. There's pawpaw beer on the left, pawpaw liqueur on the bottom, pawpaw bread, pawpaw ice cream on the top right. You can actually order that online. Pretty pricey, as you can imagine, because it has to be sent frozen. And then on the bottom, those are Paw Popsicles. I made up that word. I made those. I'll talk a little bit about a class that we did. And I collected a lot of the pulp from pawpaws and mixed it with a touch of lemon juice and a little bit of cream and made Paw Popsicles. They were a hit. Pawpaw pie, pawpaw, I think on the bottom there's cheesecake. So there's no end. I mean, you can use it like you would just about any other fruit. All right, here is, that's me on the left. I was staying with my friends in Tennessee, and he has a huge pawpaw tree right next to his porch that fruits abundantly. And I just happened to be there at the right time, and he collected all those, brought them to me, and you'll see the process that I use to extract the pulp and the seeds. So first I just kind of scraped it all out, then pushed it through a sieve, and on the bottom right is the bag of pulp that I froze because I had a certain idea what to do with them. All right, there's the Paw Popsicles again. All right, a lot of places with the name pawpaw in them, as you can see. A lot of places, rivers, etc. I'd be curious to know when we finish here if anyone of you is familiar with any of these places. But it's kind of nice. I mean, can you imagine a different fruit like banana Illinois, banana Kentucky? Pollination. This is, the photograph on the left is one of my brained ideas that was a complete failure. Pawpaws are self-incompatible. What that means is that they need, in order to set good fruit, they need to have cross-pollination. Now, this is not a male and female thing. It's simply they need a mixing of genetic material from another source. So sometimes when you go into the woods and you'll find a grove of pawpaws, we have a couple of groves here, and they produce almost no fruit because they're all the same plant. Pawpaws sucker extensively. They put up seedlings, not seedlings, but root suckers all the way around them. But it's all the same genetics. It's all the same tree. So they're not getting good cross-pollination. The color of the flower, that burgundy color, and the fragrance, fragrance is being a little bit nice, I guess. It's not bad, but it's certainly not a sweet smell. I've heard people describe it as musty or yeasty. And anytime you see a flower that is that color and has either a strange or sometimes even a foul odor, it usually means it evolved very, very early, millions of years BB. Anyone know what BB is? Janice, you probably do. BB stands for before bees. So pawpaws, as well as many other plants, evolved before there were bees, Hymenoptera, to pollinate. Therefore, they produce flowers that are the color of meat and often have a rotty smell like rotting meat to attract insects such as carrion flies, carrion beetles. And so they're frequently, mostly, I would say, pollinated by the kind of beetles and bugs and flies that will be attracted to rotting meat. So for good cross-pollination, I've heard stories, different stories of how people accomplish that. Some have picked up roadkill and hung it in their tree. We decided not to do that here. I've heard of people taking a bag of chicken eggs and hanging it in the tree to attract those same kinds of pollinators that would normally be attracted to it. So in order to try that out, I had this crazy idea. And on the left, you'll see where I took little chunks of hamburger, raw hamburger, put them in these little net bags and hung them in the trees. I don't know what I was thinking. It might have worked, except the hamburger kind of became hard very quickly and with a glossy finish to it. So if you ever visit the gardens and you see one of those hanging in the trees, that was like 2 or 3 years ago. Some of them are still there. And needless to say, it didn't work. People have different techniques for processing the fruit. On the top left is a bowl of pawpaws that are beyond being edible. They've gotten pretty rotten, but that's a really good time to collect the seeds. On the top right, the skin is removed, and on the bottom left, they're washed and through a screen to let the pulp go through and the seeds get saved. And I've done quite a bit of that. Here's my attempts, or here's my technique. Sometimes I'll put the rotten fruit in a cup of water or in a bowl of water and let it sit for a few days. It's really nasty, but it's a good way to get the pulp off the seeds. Even when you do that, though, there's still a little bit of pulp that remains on the seeds. You want to get that off of the seed. So you could do that. You could also depend on wildlife to do the work for you. This is a scat of, I don't know, coyote or something, fox. I've often wondered what people think when they see me out in the garden ferreting through animal scat, wondering what I'm doing. But that's getting those seeds and washing them off is a good way to save all that work. Maybe I'll raise a flock of animals to do that for me. All right, stratification means mimicking nature. And with pawpaw seeds, they need this period of stratification. The technique that I found most useful is keeping them at 35 to 45 degrees Fahrenheit for at least 60 days. I usually do about 90 days. And what I do, they must never dry out. So you always want to keep them moist, even from the time that you remove them from the fruit, you want to keep them moist. What I do is after I clean them off, I will wrap them in some sphagnum moss, slightly moistened, wrap them up, put them in a Ziploc bag and put them in the refrigerator. And that seems to work well. When some people like to soak them for a period of time before you plant them. You want the soil temperatures to be around 75 at least when you go ahead and start planting. Plant them an inch deep. I'm going to show you some illustrations of this. Seedlings, when they first come up, are very sensitive to strong sunlight. So you really want to be careful about that. Some people use different techniques to shield them until they get some size on them, and then they're no longer quite as sensitive to strong sunlight. All right, so I'm going to walk you through the process of growing them. This was after around 90 days. I took them out of the refrigerator, and this is what I saw. What you're seeing there is a radicle. It's the preliminary root that comes out of a seed. So that's April 9th. I planted them, and by April 23rd, look at the size of that root. They have very long roots. So I always recommend planting them in some kind of a deep pot. People have all kinds of ways they can do it. But what you're seeing there is the primary root and the radical up there at the top. There's really no sign of upper growth yet. There it is. I use these, they're called tree tubes. They're these deep tubes to give it room for the root to extend. So that's on May 3rd. May 5th, I took one out. And this is interesting. A pawpaw expert told me when I showed him photographs of some of these germinating with the seeds still attached, he said, that's very strange because normally they do hypocotyl germination, meaning the seed gets left underground, but several of mine came up with the seed still on the shoot. As you can see, again, a long root. There's a good example. So this is epicotyl instead of hypocotyl. So the shoot has come up, the first true shoot has come up with the seed still attached. It'll drop it shortly. That's on May 10th. May 21st, there they go. I had so many seeds that I ended up putting 2 per tube. Got a little carried away. Now I've got lots and lots of pawpaws. There they are, July, let's see, the last one, there's May 21st, and here they are on July 2nd. All right, this is a different type of growing pawpaws. I contacted, I think it was the Illinois Department of Plant Conservation or some agency in Illinois, and ordered these Pawpaw Saplings. These are plants that have been grown in the ground, and when they get a certain size, they dig them up and sell them. So we bought a bunch of those. This was in preparation for a full day pawpaw workshop that we did. I'd like to repeat that because it was such a success. It was part of our native plant conference a couple years ago. So on the left is the package as it arrived. On the middle photo is when I unwrapped them. That's moistened, slightly moistened sphagnum moss. And then the photograph on the right is when we started potting them up again in those long tubes. And this is the pawpaw workshop. We did a little bit of everything. We did a couple of different types of grafting. And the best part of that whole workshop was the pawpaw food products. The 2 instructors that came from the University of Kentucky, who have the only pawpaw research program in the United States. They brought 2 5-gallon buckets of pawpaw ice cream. Well, we only had, I think, 18 people in the class, so needless to say, there was a lot left over. And I feel a little bit guilty, but I put it in the freezer and just ate a little bit of it for the next month or so. But so there were pawpaw cookies, pawpaw jam, pawpaw candies. You can just about make anything from them. On the right-hand side, on the bottom, is our ones that we grafted. This is after the workshop, and we still had a lot left. So what we did is we ordered top growth cyanwood. So top growth from select cultivated varieties. And that's what people are doing with pawpaw research. When they find one that has larger fruit than usual, fewer seeds than usual, perhaps a thicker skin so they last a little bit longer, a better taste. They will take cuttings from that and sell them or use them themselves. So what we did was we would take those pieces of scion and graft them on to the straight species that I had shown you in the previous photograph, those. So we grafted onto these. The size of the rootstock, you want the saplings to be about as big as a pencil. So those are a couple of the students having grafted. This is one of my favorite photographs. There's Janice. Whenever I do have a few extra pawpaws, as I mentioned, I like people to get a taste because so many people have never tasted them. And there's our Janice. A couple of strange looks on people's faces. I'm not sure if that was good or bad. And here's another one with a different group, another year. All right, so cultivars. Cultivar stands for cultivated variety. And these are all the different ones that have been selected for some trait, some desirable trait. A lot of people, if they're going to grow pawpaws commercially, they don't grow straight species, the kind you would find in the wild. They use cultivars. So they'll use the rootstock from the straight species, but then use scionwood, the top growth, and graft them onto the rootstock. That's a lot of different cultivated varieties, and there's probably more. Bottom left, mango. Someone thought theirs tasted like mango. Let's see, one named Sue. Let's see what else. Taylor, Wabash. All right. So cultivated, when you get ready to plant them into the ground. For some reason, people say planting them in the fall is not as good as planting them in the spring. I question that. I planted some in the fall and they did well. You want the pH to be around slightly acidic, 4.5, well, 4.5 is not slightly, but acid soil is fine, but I find them pretty adaptable to just about any soil as long as it's not real limey. Lots of moisture, but good drainage. Frequently in the wild, when you see them growing, you'll find them on stream banks, but not where the roots are actually in the water. So up a little bit from a stream where they get good drainage, but they do get good moisture. I mentioned the small plants, when you first plant them, like some protection from the sun. Once they get growing, then you want to give them as much sun as possible because that's when you're going to get the best fruit production. All right, here's a couple of photographs of the grafting procedures that we did. The one on the left is called chip budding, which is where you, how to describe this, you make you cut a bud off your desired scionwood, the top growth. You cut a bud off of that and you graft it onto, again, straight species, the rootstock. So that's what that procedure is there on the left. And on the right, you'll see that baggie filled with top growth, with scionwood that we purchased in of 5 different cultivated varieties that we used for grafting in the workshop. All right, these are the ones that we had left over. We had a lot left over. So on these, we did, it's called tongue grafting, cleft grafting. This is a different kind of grafting where, as opposed to just taking a bud off the scionwood, the upper growth, you take the whole scionwood and put it, graft it onto the rootstock. I think I might have a photograph. No, I guess I don't. So what you basically do is you take the rootstock and you cut a groove into you cut it off. You cut the rootstock off at about, I don't know, foot and a half. Make a slice in the top, create a little groove, and then take your scionwood, the desired upper wood, and cut a V so that it fits right into that slit that you made. You just put it in there, wrap it up with tape, and hope for the best. We had pretty good luck with it. We actually had better luck with this type of grafting than we did the bud grafting. And I'm not quite sure what that was all about. They do have some pests, and these are usually things that eat them before you can get to them. Foxes love them, opossums love them. All of those animals will like them a lot. The only real pathogen that has ever been found on them is this fly speck. I've not had an issue, and I've got a lot of pawpaws growing. You have to figure out a way to to protect the fruit as it's forming. And I've seen a couple of ways that people have used. One was taking Dixie cups and cutting a slit down one side of it and putting that around each fruit. So that makes it difficult for animals that climb up onto the branches to get to the fruit. Another very humorous way that I saw someone protecting them, this was mostly, I think, to keep them from dropping. Once they get ripe and they drop off the tree, there's a good chance they're going to be eaten even faster by squirrels or whatever, any kind of animals on the ground. But somebody had the brilliant idea of taking a cast-off bra and tying that onto the fruit to support it so that it wouldn't fall to the ground. I didn't make that up. 3 different caterpillars depend on the pawpaw for their larvae. All right, let's see what, oh, I did have a photograph. That top left one, or the one on the left, you can see the Dixie cup on the upper right. And that's one way that someone decided to protect the fruit. And then on the right, obviously this person knows what they're doing and probably doing it commercially. They constructed these protective cages with wire and then wrapped those with, it looks like burlap. So that accomplishes a couple of things. It keeps the sapling from getting too much sun, and also keeps predators away. The deer would have a hard time munching on those. And here's the, let's see, what's this butterfly called? Swallowtail, swallowtail. Up on the top left are its seeds, its eggs, and then on the bottom left is the larvae, the caterpillar, and you can see it's on a pawpaw. There is a National Pawpaw Day. I'm sure. Oh, we just missed it. It looks like. I went the wrong way here. Oh, and you know what? If you're interested in reading more about pawpaw, this is probably the best reference. It's, in fact, it's really the only comprehensive reference that I know of. I heard this gentleman speak, excellent speaker, and it's a really good publication that's not overly scientific, but gives the history. A lot of what I've been talking about is included in this book. And as you can see, I got the James Beard Award, so highly ranked. And if you would really like to make a fool of yourself, you can dress up as a pawpaw. There are several Pawpaw Festivals in the United States, in the Eastern United States, where it's a 3-day event and they do anything that has to do with pawpaw. They sell pawpaw items, they have pawpaw music, and that's it, my good friends. And I appreciate you all putting up with this insanity. And let's see, is there anything else after that? I guess just a thank you. All right, I am ready for questions. Phil, are you there?
I am. I'm here, and you know, this is only sort of somewhat related, but I have a question about when you mentioned before bees. Does that mean that at a certain point, in at least in North America, that they didn't have bees?
That's correct. That's correct.
They were introduced from Europe. Is that
No, no, no. It has to do with evolution, as I understand it.
Oh,
bees had just not evolved yet. So there were other insects, but not bees.
Ah, I see.
Bees evolved much later.
All right. Janice, or does anyone else have a question they would like to ask John about pawpaws or anything else?
Phil, this is
Yes.
Jim Schmidt, and I had a comment, and I want to hopefully have John identify a flower that I have on a bush. That this is the first time we've seen it grow since we've been here. Elizabeth's actually been here for 13 years. I've been here for 8, and I don't know if you can see it or not.
Let's see. Phil, is there a way for me to see the photograph?
First of all, John, if you could turn off your share screen, in other words, you could go down to share screen and just turn it off, then that way we would be able to see everybody.
Let's see.
And now, if somebody wanted to show something on their camera, they'd have to hold it up so that you could see it. Either that, they'd have to share their screen. I'm not sure whether or not, whose question was this?
That was me, Jim
Okay.
Schmidt.
Is this something that you have there in front of you, or is this something you wanted to share as far
No,
as?
I have it. I cut off a twig from this bush.
Okay.
That we have, like I said, we have blooming.
All right.
It's the first time that it's bloomed in as long as Elizabeth's been here.
Okay, you need to turn your camera on first. You need to turn on so that your video is working. That's down in the left-hand corner where it says stop video or to,
No.
so that we can see you.
Probably at the
While,
top.
while you're doing that, can you describe the flower to me?
Well, it's bushy, very bushy. It's got a lot of orange little blooms on it, and there's clusters. And it's believe it or not, the leaf is very similar to the pawpaw leaf.
All right. Are you saying orange flowers?
Yeah, there's clusters of orange flowers, blooms.
Boy, I don't know. My guess is that it's not native, but here's what I'd like to ask you to do. Do you have something to write on?
Sure.
I'm going to give you my email. If you can send me a photograph, I can ID it for you. So my email is jmanion. So that's JMANION at bbgardens.org. And I'll be glad to ID it for you because I'm not seeing anything on the screen.
Okay. And then I might also mention, I actually came down from Michigan, and I still have a daughter that lives in Southwest Michigan, and that's where, of course, Pawpaw, Michigan is.
Oh, interesting. That's the first time I've actually heard of someone that is from or knows someone that's from one of the places named Pawpaw.
Yeah, just west of Kalamazoo, you get into Pawpaw County and, of course, Berrien County, and there's when I guess right now there's probably 30 different wineries up there.
Oh my goodness. I think we should lead the charge in renaming Birmingham Pawpaw, Alabama. Are there any other questions? Or, I hope.
Margaret, or you?
Yeah, Margaret, speaking. Yeah, I just wanted to know, suppose somebody like me wanted to eat a pawpaw or taste a pawpaw, and I don't have one growing outside. Where could I actually do that?
Phil, can you, that was a little bit garbled on my end. Can you?
Okay.
repeat
The question was, is if you don't have a pawpaw tree handy, where could you try some of the fruit, I think.
Oh, that's a challenge. Something I might have failed to mention is that pawpaw fruit does not have much longevity. And so you're probably never going to see it in a grocery store. The only place I've ever seen them is farmers markets, that type of thing. Either that or just, find someone that has one and ask them for a fruit. There's a small farmers market here in Birmingham on Saturday afternoon. It's called the United something. It's the afternoon farmers market. And there's a gentleman there that has had pawpaws in the past. It might be a bit late now, but you could check. Yeah, it's not easy to come by fresh pawpaws. Your best bet would probably be to try to order some of the pulp that has been frozen.
All right. Any other questions for John?
If pawpaws were so popular back in colonial times, what happened to lessen their popularity?
That's a good question. Yeah, that's a good question, and I'm not quite sure, unless it has to do with what's that?
Where'd he go?
All right. My guess is that as other fruits became available, especially with imports from other parts of the world that were easier to grow and had fruit that produced more edible material. As I mentioned, with pawpaws, it's not a real big fruit to start with. It's about the size of a small mango with a lot of big seeds in it. So I don't know if that had to do with it or not. I'm not quite sure why they fell out of favor.
Because they tasted funny. And
What was that?
This is Carol.
Hi, Carol.
Hi. I'm wondering where I can see the pawpaws in the botanical gardens.
Well, first of all, if you come and see me, I can show you a whole bunch of them. Other than that, do you know where our old bog garden is?
Yes.
Okay, so if you walk past the conservatory towards the old bog garden and you cross that bridge, as soon as you cross that bridge, turn left and just keep on following that. And when it starts curving around to the right, you'll see a whole grove of them right there next to the stream. But I have several in the greenhouse and in the lath house that I can show you. Either that or I could just, if you let me know when you're coming, I could take you and show you a few different colonies of them. We also have some in the Barber, Alabama woodlands as you're heading down the road towards the Japanese garden. On the left-hand side, there's a whole grove of them right next to the road.
Huh. Thank you.
John, you did not mention how big the trees get. What size are they?
Yeah, about the biggest I've ever heard of is around 30 feet. So it's not a huge tree, but they'll get some size on them. Not real fast growing. So if you plant a seed, you're probably going to wait at least 4 or 5 years before you get any fruit on it.
Right.
Where is the farmer's market you mentioned?
Oh,
Called
geez,
United something.
I was afraid you're going to ask me. It's over near Highland Park, I think. Yeah, just look up United Farmers Market in Birmingham.
Janice,
Yeah.
the Unity Market is at Unity Church on Highland Avenue.
Oh,
And it
okay.
is open on Saturday afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, it's not a big market, but one of the reasons that I like going is that I'm a real fan of Thai food, and there's a business that has a little truck there that sells really good, authentic Thai food, and then different farmers bring their goods in. Like I say, it's not a huge one. Marble Farms from Sylacauga comes and they sell various meat products, organically raised, sustainably raised meat products. So a little bit of everything, but not a big farmer's market, nothing that compares to something like Pepper.
Place.
Yeah. Who else? Someone else asked me some questions.
Okay, yes, be sure to unmute your microphone before you start asking your questions. Anybody else have a question for Mr. Manion? Okay, this is your big chance. You know, I have to say, I've never had a pawpaw. Matter of fact, if somebody had asked me what a pawpaw was before now, I couldn't really have told you what it, you know, what the fruit or anything else looks like. So this has been very educational for me, and I
Wonderful.
And
Wonderful.
thank you again for,
John, I have
Yes.
not, I have not been back to the gardens except to work with the wildflower group in the potting shed. So I have not been in the regular entrance. Is that, entrance open now?
Oh yeah. It's been open for the last couple of months.
And, there's no restriction on people going in except you have to
No.
wear a mask?
You don't even have to wear a mask. I mean, we ask that people do if they're going to be any near other people. But we have a lot of people that walk every morning and they don't wear masks unless they're going to be around close to someone. But to get into the building, you really need to have a mask on. But outside, not really.
Okay. I thought everybody should know about that, that they can go to the gardens now.
Yeah. It's if any of you are interested, I highly recommend coming to visit the Call Wildflower Garden. It's just beginning to come down off of peak fall flowering. There's still several plants in flower. I would say it peaked about a week or two ago, but a lot of stuff is still, a lot of the ironweeds are still flowering. The hardy ageratum is absolutely stunning right now. It's a nice time to visit, especially late afternoon when you get that golden light. The bog looks wonderful. All the pitcher plants have their pitchers up. A lot to see at this time of the year.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sean, for being here with us.
Thank you, Janice.
last call for questions. Well, if not, thank you very much, John.
It sounded like someone started to ask something.
Okay, please.
No.
Nope, I didn't hear anyone.
Okay. Okay.
But once again, thank you very much for giving this presentation, and I have enjoyed it, and we'll see everyone tomorrow for our speaker tomorrow, Dorothy Ogden from the UAB Library, who will be talking on 3D printing. We hope to see you then.
Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. I enjoyed it, and I'm a little less intimidated about giving a Zoom talk.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Phil?
Yes, I'm right here.
How many people did we have?
Let's see, I think we got up to about 40 people logged in, which is a good turnout. Some of those actually have more than one person watching, so
yes, okay.
I would say that is a good number for our group.
Wonderful.
Oh, hold it. I think my wife has a question. Rowena here has a question for you. Go ahead.
My question has to do with a blueberry tree.
Oh.
Well,
All right.
Hope Cooper, I think, brought some pictures in of the tree. The berries all go on the ground. They look just like blueberries. They're bright blue and have the same shape and little end. I cut one open. It has a huge seed on the inside. And I've looked it up and I can't figure out what it might be.
Is it the same size as a regular blueberry?
Yes.
Huh.
I mean, and they look like you want to eat them because they look quite tasty. And so I'm mainly concerned at this point. They're certainly not that edible since they have this huge, huge seed in them. But I have a granddaughter that might think, who really likes blueberries, and I don't want her to try to eat something that's poisonous.
My feeling on that, without knowing any more about it, is that it's not a blueberry.
Well, yeah, that's my thought too.
Because I've never seen a blueberry with a big seed inside of it. But if you could send me a photograph, I'll be glad to ID it for you, of the fruit and then maybe the leaves on the tree.
And the leaves, when we looked them up in the leaf identification thing, said cherry and peach, and it's obviously neither one of those.
You know what? It could be a cherry. It could be one of our native cherries.
Really?
Now, yeah, are the leaves shiny?
Yeah. And they turn red, and they've been turning red for a while. And the tree is about maybe 20 feet tall.
Oh yeah, that's definitely not a blueberry.
Oh, I know.
Send me a couple of photographs and I'll be glad to ID it for you.
Okay.
All right. Anything else, Phil? Phil?
Oh, I'm at his computer.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you all.
So we can all click our own leave.